Hi, we're just gonna wait a couple of minutes to see if a few more people sign on. But in the interim, I can just mention that we have this is the fourth of our series of fall green gardening classes. The other green gardening classes, if you weren't able to attend, were backyard composting, sustainable landscaping, tree selection, watering, and care. And those presentations, the recordings and the PowerPoint presentations are available at www.greenerdavis.org. We'll just wait like one more minute, then we'll get started. But today's presentation will be on leak detection and the city's customer water use portal, which is called AquaHawk. And my name's Dawn Calciano. I'm one of the conservation coordinators here with the City of Davis in our Environmental Resources Division, along with Jennifer Gilbert, who's helping with today's presentation. We're having some audio issues on her end right now, but she is doing the slides and assisting. We'll just wait another minute or two and then we'll jump in. Okay, right before we start, just mention that if you have questions along the way, feel free to use the raise hand button, and then we'll stop partway through the presentation and then again at the end to take any questions that come up, but feel free to use that raise hand button and then we can allow you to speak. So like I mentioned, my name is Dawn Calciano. I'm a conservation coordinator with our Environmental Resources Division with the City of Davis and our Public Works, Utilities, and Operations division department, along with Jennifer Gilbert, who's assisting with this webinar. She's a conservation coordinator focused on recycling and solid waste, and I primarily focus on water conservation. So we're going to be talking about leak detection and the city's customer water use portal called AquaHawk. Next slide. So some common household indoor leaks, just to kind of go through what some of those might be and things to look for. Common leaks found around the home are toilet flappers. Those can often be silent, especially if they're less than like 8 to 10 gallons per hour. Dripping faucets or shower heads, other leaking valves that you might find around the house. Some other leaks, those are kind of the most common ones that we find, but other leaks that have been reported to us are water softeners that are continuously discharging, reverse osmosis systems under the sink type of systems, where they are also continuously discharging and not just running when they're in use, and hot water leaks, which can be under the slab or near the hot water heater. Next slide. Some common outdoor leaks, again, are failing valves. Their valves indoors and outdoors can get stuck open and have issues, but failing valves within the irrigation system, broken sprinkler heads and pipes, holes in the drip line or missing drip emitters are some problems that we sometimes see with drip systems. For pools and spas, stuck valves or issues with the valves, cracked autofills. Ponds, which are a little less common, but we have seen where there's been supply lines to the ponds or stuck valves for backyard ponds where there have been leaks. Next slide. So how much water do leaks actually waste? I think it's a question that we get sometimes, and we do have this information up on the city's website at savedaviswater.org. Average household leaks, according to the US EPA, are about 10,000 gallons of water a year. So a pretty substantial amount of water that an average household has. That's enough to wash 270 loads of laundry. So it's kind of, when you add it up over time, it can be quite a bit of water. Irrigation leaks, a small hole in an irrigation line about the thickness of the tip of a ballpoint pen, can actually waste about 6,300 gallons of water per month. So, that really small hole can actually be quite a large amount of water over a month-long time period. Shower head drips, just 10 drips per minute, can be about 500 gallons of water per year, which is about 60 loads of dishes. And next slide. Faucet leaks, 1 drip per second can be about 3,000 gallons per year. That's enough water for 180 showers. And then toilet leaks, the volume can vary greatly. Sometimes it's less than a gallon per hour of a leak, and I had a toilet fill valve break and it was 310 gallons an hour. So they can vary quite a bit depending on the magnitude and what type of leak you might have with your toilet. Many toilet leaks are even silent, which is a surprise to people. They expect to be able to hear them, but toilet flapper leaks can be silent until they really kind of get running, above like that 5 to 8 gallons per hour, when they start to become audible and you would hear them. Next slide. So how do you check for leaks, or how do you notice that there might be a leak occurring, on your property? Checking the water usage on your utility bills. There's the water usage graph on the City of Davis utility bill. Are you seeing significantly higher use than the past year that you don't have an explanation for? This year we had a very dry summer. We also did last year, but you may have seen an increase in use just due to increased irrigation needs. But is it twice as much, 3 times as much? Is there something that you're seeing that is more of a cause for concern, but you don't have an explanation of, oh, I was watering 1 day additional a week or a little bit longer, so I know that water use was occurring? Also, has the bill been increasing in the winter months? Did you have irrigation on in the summer and you've stopped that irrigation, but you're still seeing your bill climb up in the winter? That could be a sign that you have a leak somewhere, when we typically see the water usage and the bills drop down. With your water meter box, which is typically located, it's usually a rectangular box, it can sometimes be round, but it's primarily in town. They're rectangular. They usually have kind of a rigid plastic green color lid to them. Sometimes they have a concrete lid. They're usually either in the driveway or off to the side of the driveway. But if you're seeing water pulling in or around the meter box, that could be a sign that you have a leak. Also checking in AquaHawk, the customer water use portal, and we'll talk about that with some slides at the later on in the presentation. You can monitor your daily and hourly water use and also look for signs of continuous water use. Next slide. So we're going to run through a short video for checking for leaks indoors from EPA WaterSense. So this video is showing, like I mentioned, you can be using 10,000 gallons of water a year. So you can see that was just kind of going through some of the more common indoor leaks that we see, tightening faucets that we mentioned, tightening shower heads, checking that there's no drips, also how to do that toilet dye check, where you can place a couple drops of food coloring in your toilet tank, like 3 to 4 drops, leave it about 15 to 20 minutes. If you see color come through to the toilet bowl without flushing, then you have a sign that you've got a silent flapper leak for your toilet. Just make sure you flush it afterwards to eventually clear out that dye, so you don't, leave it for a long period and stain the bowl. We can go to the next slide. So as I just mentioned, for the checking for leaks indoors, we talked about the toilets already, but other things to listen for. Are you hearing water running anywhere in your home when nothing should be in use? Are you hearing that sound of water someplace that might indicate that there's a leak happening? Hot water leaks, are you seeing a spike in use in your natural gas bill? Now, we might see that increase in the winter anyway, but if you're seeing an increase in that in the summer, maybe that could be a sign that there's something happening that can help to indicate if there might be a hot water leak occurring. Toilets, we mentioned doing that dye test, and that silent flapper leaks are the most common leak in the home. So usually if we suspect someone suspects there's a leak on their property, we suggest that they check the toilets first, just to rule them out that that's not potentially the cause of an issue. Faucets and shower heads, checking the kitchens, laundry rooms, bathrooms, all of those area for drips, and just tightening up the taps. Is even a slow drip can eventually add up over time, or maybe, increase in the amount of the drip over time. So our next slide. And we have another short video here on checking for leaks in irrigation. It does talk about sprucing up your sprinkler system in the spring, but it does go through kind of those common leaks that we might find outdoors. can go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the irrigation leaks to ways to check for irrigation leaks on the property. Look for areas of standing water or areas of consistently moist soil. Do you have a plant that is just doing great, doing way better than everything else on your property, or an area of your lawn that's bright green and just doing really well? That can be a sign that you've got an irrigation leak that might even potentially be underground and not coming to the surface. So definitely looking for pooling water can indicate an irrigation valve leak, especially if you have water pooling near one of the sprinkler heads or one of the valves. Checking sprinkler heads, are they potentially broken or clogged? Checking the sprinkler head at the lowest elevation in the yard, because the water from the irrigation system can end up pooling near that sprinkler head if there is an issue somewhere within the irrigation system. Drip lines, checking for missing emitters and holes in drip lines. Rodents in particular like to try to get to the water and gnaw through some of the drip line material. You can go to the next slide. So other things to check for irrigation leaks are checking your sprinkler timer, checking the timer programming. Sometimes the timer programming, it can be set accidentally, not just for AM, but to run in the PM. So you've got it running for the same, irrigation patterns 2 different times of the day without knowing it. If there's a recent power outage, if there's not a battery backup for your irrigation controller, then it could be that it's watering on a different schedule than you were aware of, that it's now gone back to a default schedule. It might even be that the default schedule is for watering in like new turf. So it's watering every day when normally you water 2 days per week. The timers can also malfunction. Everything kind of as it reaches the end of its useful life can have issues. So sometimes timers malfunction and they're coming on and off or not working properly. It's one of the reasons that we suggest, if you're turning your irrigation off for the winter time or to check for issues in your irrigation system, turn it off at the timer, but also at the valve or the set of valves. So typically you'll have an valve for your indoor water use. And sometimes there's also a main irrigation valve near that same area, kind of outside toward the front of your home. There's also sometimes there's the valve, we call it the valve manifold. It's a set of valves, usually PVC pipes that stick up above the ground that have those individual valves that are often on the side of the house, so that you can turn them off either if you've got a main valve for your irrigation or separate, valves for each portion of your irrigation system. And that's a way just to rule out that there's no water going into the irrigation system, even with the timer off, that could be causing a leak somewhere on the property. Can also consider controller upgrades when we have rain, like we actually had some rain recently. You can add a rain sensor. It basically works like an interrupt switch. When the rain sensor detects enough rainfall, it'll actually turn off, basically tell the timer, don't run right now until it dries out enough, and then it'll tell the timer to turn back on. So that's a great addition. I think typically run like $15 to $25, depending if you do a wired or wireless rain sensor, but that can make sure that you're not watering during the rain when, irrigation really isn't needed. And also consider a weather or a soil-based controller. They were showing those. EPA WaterSense has a list on their website of controllers that have been certified to meet certain requirements and to show that they actually give the water use reductions that they claim that they are. And that automatically adjusts to the different site conditions. You put in information about your landscaping, the type of landscaping you have, the amount that you need it to water, and then it takes weather information and actually adjusts based on the weather. You can go to the next slide. So other types of leaks outdoors are dripping hose bibs, just like we might have faucet leaks indoors. Dripping hose bib are a fairly common one that we see outdoors. Pools and spas, particularly cracked autofills on pools or spas. So you've got a small crack in the autofill, so it's continuously pulling in some additional water because it has a crack there, or a stuck valve. We've had things reported to us like pebbles stuck in the valves, even occasionally dead insects that are stuck in the valves that are keeping that valve to the pool or spa supply line stuck open a little bit with some water always running. Similar issues with ponds, supply lines, or stuck valves. You can also have an actual leak somewhere within the supply line feeding the pool or spa that's underground. Sometimes there is a separate turnoff for that line up near the front of the house too, like there is for the irrigation. Sometimes it ties in with the irrigation. Every property is a little bit different, but that's also something to potentially look for. You can go to the next slide. So we have a couple of short videos here on some common replacements within the home, how to replace a toilet flapper, since we mentioned that's the most common leak. And so these are through EPA WaterSense. I'm not a plumbing expert, but these are some kind of simple replacements for some of the more common leaks that we see. Definitely when you're looking online, just make sure you're looking, at reputable videos. EPA WaterSense, the state of California Save Our Water program, they all have videos on how to do some of these common repairs. So we're going to just watch a brief video on replacing a toilet flapper. So that was just a brief video on how to replace your toilet flapper through WaterSense. And like it mentions on there, we mentioned WaterSense has information on their website on finding weather-based irrigation controllers or options for irrigation controllers that adjust automatically. WaterSense also certifies it's the water equivalent of Energy Star on the energy side, which you might be aware of. They certified products for toilets and for shower heads, faucets, for other things that all meet specified requirements too, to show that they actually give you the water savings that you're looking for. So WaterSense is a good label to be looking for, and they typically are available at most places where you would go to purchase this type of hardware. So I have a brief video on replacing a faucet aerator, which is another common leak that's found within a home. One thing to mention with the faucet aerators is that there are different flows that you'll want for a kitchen aerator versus a bathroom faucet aerator. So they're not, those aren't interchangeable. You can usually use the similar aerators for most bathrooms, but for your kitchen, you actually need a little bit of a higher flow because you're using it for cleaning and for other uses. So you do want to be careful that those two are not usually interchangeable. So be cautious if you're looking at faucet aerators that you know which faucet you are looking at replacing it for. We can go on to the next one. We have one more short video. This one is on how to do a shower head replacement. Like I mentioned, WaterSense also has information on their website where you can search for products that have gone through and achieved the WaterSense label for shower heads. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So another option is if you are having, an issue with an appliance on your property, or, a fixture or appliance on your property, and you're, looking to change out that appliance, or it's reached the end of its useful life, it's just not working well anymore. You're looking to upgrade your appliance. They're definitely looking for efficient models, which most of what you can find now in California are going to be the efficient models. But you can see that there can be quite a bit of savings. A clothes washer, a more efficient model, can save up to 27 gallons per load. Bathroom faucets, 1.8 gallons. But there is information on the city's website, also through WaterSense, the Save Our Water program, and the California Green Building Code. You can find information on what the efficient models are, to look for if you are doing some type of, appliance or fixture replacement. Go to the next slide. So one other thing we wanted to mention were what happens if you see a leak at the meter box? And as I was mentioning, and you can kind of see in this diagram here, the water meter box is typically in the driveway or off to the side of the driveway. It's usually a rectangle, sometimes can be circular, but that's kind of the typical placement of it. And this is showing the homeowner responsibility from, past the water meter up to the house and into the house, and the city responsibility from the water meter kind of back to the city water main. So if you see water pooling or spilling out of your meter box itself, then please call over to Public Works, Utilities, and Operations, because we'll want to send a crew out to check that there's not, a leak actually at the meter or on the city side, but there's not a leak in a city water main or something nearby. You can also request a water consumption check. With those, the water crew will come out to take a look at the city infrastructure and the water meter to make sure that there's no, issue happening there, but everything's functioning properly. City staff do only check the meter and the city infrastructure. They don't do leak checks on the homeowner's side of the property. But that has the contact information. It's also available on multiple places on our website. But if you are seeing any issues, please give us a call and we can try to assist. So to take just a brief pause here to see if anyone had any questions before we jump into kind of more information on AquaHawk and how you can use that online portal to check for leaks. So if you had any questions, feel free to raise your hand. And if not, we'll kind of jump into the AquaHawk leak check portion. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer's in the office next to me. She was letting me know that there are no hands raised. So using AquaHawk to assist in finding leaks, we can jump to the next slide. So in case you aren't aware, I'm not sure if everyone on this webinar is familiar with AquaHawk or not, so I'm going to give a little bit of a brief overview. And if you're not familiar with it and you'd like more information, you can always reach out to us and we can provide that information. We also have pages on AquaHawk available at savedaviswater.org. There's information on how to register, how to read information in AquaHawk, how to set usage alerts. But just as a general overview, AquaHawk is the City of Davis's customer water use portal. It allows customers to view their hourly water consumption, to manage water usage, and to customize alert settings. So as of November of 2021, there were 6,625 customers registered in AquaHawk that are using the program for the City of Davis. Next slide. So to register for AquaHawk, you do need to be the account holder on record with the city, but you can provide as a property owner access to others. So if you have renters or if you have a landscaper, somebody who is going to assist in monitoring or might be helping you to locate a leak, you can provide access to others. You can also monitor the usage remotely. So you don't have to, be in the same town to necessarily be able to view the usage and have an idea of what's happening on the property. And multiple people can have separate registrations on the same account. So you can see that someone else is registered, but you can't see their contact information. So you could have, a homeowner registered and a renter registered. That way they both receive notifications if they've set up usage alerts in the system. And like I mentioned, the registration information is available at savedaviswater.org. Just briefly on setting usage alerts, just whether you're in AquaHawk already or not, just to kind of have that awareness of the what the program offers is that usage alerts are one of the primary benefits of AquaHawk. In AquaHawk, they're called My Thresholds, and they're actually found in the top center of the page where it has your overall water use. There's two blue buttons. One says Export, one says My Thresholds. You click on that My Thresholds, you'll get a box that looks like this. There are many options for alert settings. You can set, I want to know if I use this much water in an hour, in a day. I'm projected to use this much, for a month. But the one that we really like to point out to people is there's an alert for continuous water use over a 24-hour time period or less. I believe the options are 4, 8, 12, 16, and 24 hours. And there is a time lag, though, of approximately 12 hours within the system. So the alert isn't immediate. There is a time lag in when the reads that are taken hourly at the meter are transmitted 4 times per day, and there is a time lag in there, but it is much quicker than 2 months later when you might see something on your bill. And like it's this usage over a 24-hour time period, it basically functions as a continuous use alert. For example, for my own property, I set it at 1 gallon per hour for 24 hours. So if I have 1 gallon of water used each hour for 24 hours, I will receive an alert. And it actually has alerted me twice now of 2 different issues that happened on my property. You can go to the next slide. So looking for continuous water use using AquaHawk. So say you're not hearing any or seeing any signs of a leak somewhere on your property, AquaHawk might let you know that there is some continuous water use to kind of serve as an alert that there might be something happening that isn't maybe visible at this time. So you look for signs of continuous use throughout the night. You'll see in the lower right of the slide as an example of continuous water use. There's those blue bars during every hour from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then over on the far right, you can see that there's use at between midnight and 1 a.m. There's use between 7 and 8 a.m., but there's no water use in those other hours. That's an example of what we typically see for single family properties is a couple of hours with no water use. When we see that continuous water use through the night, then there's a concern that there's some type of potential leak on the property, whether it's just something that's been happening for a night, like a faucet wasn't closed all the way, or it's something that might be ongoing. So you can check through a couple of nights to see, does it drop to 0, or is it, continuing over multiple days or weeks? Those bright blue bars that you see are actual water usage. So I wanted to point out these orange brown bars that you might see in AquaHawk. Those indicate time periods of what AquaHawk calls spanning. It's when a meter read or multiple reads can't be transmitted. There might be a car parked on top of the meter box. There's something blocking the data collection unit, and so that signal can't be sent for the radio transmission. When AquaHawk gets a read in, it then takes that read and averages it out over the entire time period that there weren't reads. So it can look like, say that you didn't have reads for a couple of days, AquaHawk gets the read in and it averages out over that 3-day time period. It's showing an orange brown bar of the same amount of water used every hour, may not indicate that you actually have a leak on the property. When you're looking for leaks in AquaHawk, you're looking for those bright blue bars. You may not want to be looking if you see that time period of spanning. Now, if you see weeks in a row with bright blue bars, one night with the orange brown, and then you see the bright blue bars through the night again, you probably still have continuous use. But if you're just seeing it for one night, just double check that it's not because of a time period of spanning that might have been causing that. You can go to the next slide. So checking for leaks using AquaHawk, using some of the same things that we already discussed, kind of looking around the property and seeing if there might be an issue somewhere. If you see that continuous water use, you're going to want to do those initial steps that we talked about of checking for leaks indoors and outdoors. But you can also use AquaHawk as a tool to kind of be a water detective or sleuth and to look for leaks. So you can try the following, usually recommend one at a time. Some people prefer to turn everything off, see if water use drops, and then they turn things back on one at a time. But typically the way we've seen most people do it is you turn off one of appliance or fixture or say irrigation one at a time, and then check in AquaHawk about 24 hours later to see if the water use has dropped. So turn off your irrigation, like we mentioned, at the timer and at the valve or valves. Leave it off for a night or two, check in AquaHawk probably the next day because there is that 12-hour time lag. see if water use dropped. If you say you had continuous use of 15 gallons an hour and now you're seeing 0, then it's likely that that leak is somewhere within your irrigation system. You can do the same thing with pool or spa supply lines, turn those off for a night or two, see if the water use drops. And for any appliances and fixtures, toilets, you can check for those silent flapper leaks by doing the food dye test. You can also turn off a toilet or other fixture actually at the valve. So like the valve at the base of the toilet, leave it off for a few hours or overnight, turn it back on. You see that there was no water use during that night, then that would indicate that there's an issue with that particular toilet or that particular fixture that you're checking. After repairs are made, whether you're making repairs or you've hired someone to make repairs, AquaHawk can also be used as a tool to confirm that that water use has dropped to 0 and that that repair was successful. Occasionally, and unfortunately, sometimes a larger leak's repaired and it uncovers that there was a small, say, toilet flapper leak. So there is still a small amount of water use. So AquaHawk can be helpful just to confirm that those repairs that were made really took care of the issue that was happening. You can go to the next slide. So these are some resources for checking for leaks. We have information up on the city's website. We have a leak detection page, savedaviswater.org. There's information through EPA WaterSense, which we mentioned. We have multiple PDFs online using AquaHawk to assist in finding leaks, some tips for irrigation. There's information on leaks and water use. There's different PDFs that have appeared in our utility bills, and those are available online also. And we're finished. This was our last slide, so we've gone through things rather quickly, and I apologize if I spoke too fast. But go ahead and see if we have any questions here, because we definitely have a little bit of time for questions. Yeah, I see we have one question here. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, Lori.
Yeah, sorry. Could you reiterate how to sign up with AquaHawk? I missed that.
Sure, no problem. So the easiest place to get the information to register is to go to savedaviswater.org. And from there, it goes through kind of the registration instructions, and it has the direct link to the AquaHawk portal where you'll actually do the registration. When you first set it up, you'll put in, a username and password. Then the AquaHawk will send you an email, and it'll ask you for your account name and the account number as it appears on the bill. The only thing that sometimes has been tricky with that is that if you have leading zeros on your account number, AquaHawk doesn't have those zeros. But if you run into any issues, you can also call or email me and we can assist you. We can always get you registered on the admin side and get you set up that way if you're running into any problems when you try to register.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions? It looks like we have a question from Lori.
Sorry, comment more than a question is
Sure.
that I have a small lawn in my back, and a few years back, I got one of those hydrometers from Davis Lumber. It's about $10.
Okay.
So if I don't need if it's, I could test how wet the lawn is. If it doesn't need watering, I could turn it off. And that's been very helpful.
Yeah, that's a very good comment. Thank you, Lori. That's you can also use I think they sell them more for potted plants, but we've distributed them at different times and sometimes in conjunction with Tree Davis to check for tree water at root level. But there's just the soil moisture meters that you stick in the ground that just tell you if it's wet or dry to get an idea of root level. You can also do that with the screwdriver, where you put the screwdriver in to see if it comes out and it's moist at root level. Sometimes the top will look pretty dry, but because we have clay soils, you'll actually still have quite a bit of water in the soil. So it's an excellent comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Lots of good information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see if we've got any other questions. And if not, then we've wrapped up a little bit early. Let's give it another minute, but if there's no other questions, then we will sign off here in a minute. The information will be posted on the city's webpage. It's at greenerdavis.org. And then greenerdavis.org and the savedaviswater.org both are pages within the city's website. They're just short links to be able to get to kind of the conservation and water conservation information. But if you go through the city's main webpage and search for Greener Davis, it'll also come up, or search for water conservation. You can reach all of these pages through the main website also. But this information will be posted under workshops at the greenerdavis.org link. And seeing no other questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. And we thank you for coming to the presentation. If you missed the very beginning, we did have 3 other presentations as part of the Green Gardening series. Those are all available online, both the recorded presentation and the PowerPoint versions. We also have our past workshops online. So there's information on, taking out your turf, and there's information on composting, stormwater. There's quite a variety of environmental topics where the past workshop information is available on our website. So thank you again for attending. Have a great afternoon.